was right. We'll see. Well, next time. So that was a trailer just for our launch last week of the new Realms Quest mode of the game, which I'll explain a little bit about. But first I will go into a bit of history of Chaos and what the new game is all about and what our plans are for the future. So who am I? Julian Golb, CEO of Snapshot Games Incorporated, which I set up last year, and I've been designing computer games since 1983. And this particular game, Warlock by Games Workshop, was in fact the inspiration for me originally to make Chaos. And I never actually played this game, believe it or not, but I saw some friends playing it at school, and they didn't let me take part in it. I was intrigued about how the game worked. You had a set of cards with spells on it, but what I didn't like about this game was the fact that the board was very static, and I wanted something which had which used cards for the spells, but also had the dynamic of moving creatures and wizards around some terrain, around an environment. So I decided to make my own board game. And oops, let's go on. And this is it. This is what I made in 1981. These are the original cards, and these are some of the creatures. They got some basic stats, and you got strength, magic resistance, a movement rating, a maneuver rating, a combat rating, and an endurance rating. And you had a set of these cards. You shuffle the cards, dealt them to each player, and when you cast a spell, you put the card down on the table, and you roll the dice to see if you cast it. And when it was down, it's on a little sort of 11 by 7 grid of squares. So you put the cast creature down next to your wizard, and then you started moving these around the square grid and maneuvering to try and kill the opposing wizards. So this was the original board game that I made. Here are some of the other spells, and some of these spells are in the current game. You've got the glutinous blob, which is now called the gooey blob, which spreads around the board. See, in the original card game, you had to roll dice to do this. So you roll a dice, and 1, it spread that way, 2, it spread up, 3, it spread right, 4, it spread down. If you rolled a 6, it died. You had magic fire, which spread around the map. The enchanted wood, you had a whole series of these cards, and your wizard could go inside and get more spells. And the shadow wood, which is like a pretty angry looking trees that could attack but can't move. So actually we've got the gooey blob and the enchanted wood and the shadow wood are all in the new Chaos Reborn. And after I made the board game, computers came out. In 1981 I didn't have a computer, but by 1983 I had my Sinclair ZX Spectrum, and after a couple of years working on some other games, I programmed my original card game for the Spectrum, and this is what it looked like. The interesting and maybe slightly ironic thing is that it was published by Games Workshop, and the original Warlock was the inspiration for my original board game. And in this game was primarily a multiplayer game, and you could play against AI, but it had a completely blank screen, and it was just filled in as you cast spells. And here you can see some gooey blobs spreading here, there's different creatures summoned here, and you just moved your creatures around, maneuvered to fight. A very simple game. But the interesting thing about the game is that a lot of people really liked it, and it had something special and unique about it. It was a multiplayer game. It was kind of pretty cool that you could crowd around the computer and you could play against your friends, against your family, up to 8 players, or you could have 4 players versus AI. And the games were quick, even though it was a turn-based game. The games themselves weren't dragging on forever and ever, and it had this nail-biting tension about whether you're going to die this turn or whether you're going to win. And over the years, there have been at least 35 attempts to remake this game by various people, various fans. Probably hundreds more attempted. I used to get emails sent to me every year, 5 or 6 every year, saying, that game you made, can I do a remake for it? And I always say to people, yeah, sure, go ahead, thinking this was some strange obsession people have got. But I came back to the original Chaos because I thought the game system itself had something very interesting about it, which is not really present in modern games. And here, so I launched the Kickstarter campaign. Here's a graph of our Kickstarter campaign. And for anybody who's done a Kickstarter campaign, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. You have, I did a lot of work leading up to it. I even, worked on making a prototype, publicly playable prototype. And during the course, it's slowly building up. And then, looking at the line here, it doesn't look like you're going to hit the target. And then all of a sudden, at the end, it just jumped up, and which was really great. So we had funding for the game. We finished our Kickstarter campaign in April last year. And I set the company up, and we since launched the game on Steam Early Access in December last year. And one of the things about the new game, the presentation, of course, is very different, but there are some aspects of the original design which I really wanted to keep. And one is this binary combat system. So when you attacked with a creature, it either succeeded or it failed. There's no hit points or anything like that. It's a very brutal system, but it does add some tension to it, and it means you have to manage your risk carefully. Like, what if the attacks don't succeed? What if they do? And the computer game had a very interesting illusion mechanic in it, where you could summon a creature as an illusion, or you could summon it as real. And if you summoned it as an illusion, the creature can behave exactly as another real creature, can kill, it can fight, but any enemy wizard can disbelieve that illusion and just make it go away instantly. So we had this kind of a bluff mechanic, which has some very interesting psychology behind it. And if you play against good Chaos Reborn players, they're very good at using illusions in ways you don't suspect, and they also tend to be uncannily good at disbelieving the illusions that you do cast. At one point, I developed a bit of a reputation for summoning a dwarf or a goblin on turn 1 as an illusion. Now, a dwarf and a goblin are 90% cast, so very reliable. I think, well, why bother to cast those an illusion? But my thinking was that nobody's going to disbelieve a dwarf or a goblin, so why bother taking the 10% risk that it's going to fail? Very logical. But unfortunately, I developed a slight reputation for doing this, and I was caught out several times by having my goblins disbelieved on turn 1. But so we kept that in. So we got the kill or survive combat, the illusions, and we have this concept of the law chaos balance. It's this way you can manipulate the casting chance of spells. So the spells are divided between law, neutral, and chaos. And the more law spells you cast, the more it shifts towards law, making those easy to cast. If you cast chaos spells, it shifts the general balance of the arena towards chaos, making those spells easy to cast. The neutral spells are unaffected by this balance, and they don't move it either. So in your general strategy, even though the spells that you get at the start of the game are completely, they're randomly determined, you have to figure out a strategy. Do I want to push towards law or push towards chaos, or what's my opponent trying to do? And you need to have a little bit of a plan at the start of your battle as to what you're going to do. So we kept that in. So all these things are in from the original game all the way back from 1985. A few things we added, though, which are interesting. Lots more interesting battle environments, a hex-based environment which has different levels of elevation, and this is an important factor in the strategy. If any of you are in the Chaos Reborn tournament, bear in mind, if you're attacking from above, you get quite a significant boost to your combat ability. If you're attacking from below, you get a significant penalty. And maneuvering around creatures and trying to get them. If you move next to a creature, you can get engaged. So the maneuvering of your creatures is very important. We've got now 7 different types of environments. This one is a mana flux environment. We've also got the introduction of mana in the game. Mana is a subtle effect that you can accumulate mana points for killing creatures or discarding cards or collecting mana sprites, and you can use these to boost the casting chance of your spells. And this can be done depending on your play style. If you want reliable spell casting, you can say, I definitely want this spell, I'm going to boost it. Or you can use it to boost the casting chance of low cost spells. Or you can use it to cast your mega spell. So each staff has a mega spell, and it's a particularly powerful spell. You have to activate it using mana. We have also implemented an interface in the game, which is going back to the original card game that I had. So your spells are presented as little cards along the bottom. You've got a little deck here you draw from, and to cast your spell, you're just dragging the card onto the board, and then you're summoning the creatures and moving things around. And here's another example of one of the environments. This is the Citadel. Interesting little fact here. I wanted to keep the battles in Chaos Reborn quick and dynamic. At the moment, it's primarily a multiplayer online game, and we've collected a lot of interesting statistics. The average length of a game, a 2-player battle, is 7.5 minutes. Though this does vary enormously, inexperienced players can often be involved in battles lasting less than 2 minutes because they do what's known as the kamikaze wizard rush. 2 wizards just run towards each other, and they zap bolts at each other, and it can be all over in 2 turns. With a more experienced player, you're likely to modify your strategy based on what you've got, what's going on, and games can last significantly longer, half an hour or so. Or if you're playing so 3 or 4 player games, again, it's a completely different game and different strategy. We also have a 2 versus 2 co-op mode, which is really interesting. But the principle applies that in making a turn-based game, to make every turn interesting, every decision interesting, you need to have a good dynamic behind it that keeps things going. And I think we kept this quite successfully from the very original game. In terms of how we went about designing the game visually, we have kept a lot of creatures from the original game, but we wanted to present them in a different way. So the creatures are, although we have conventional elves and goblins and so on, the style that we decided to go for was something more unique, and these creatures are going to have more unique backstories. So the elf is no longer some green hippie guy. So our elves, the creatures of law, so the lawful colors are tend towards, cyan and blue and strong crystalline elements. So this is our elf here on the left. And this is a female character actually in this case. The goblin is some kind of strange, he's got some kind of strange bird mask on him. The paladin is kind of like a half cyborg type creature, half magically animated machinery. Little dwarf, the skeleton is buffed up. The neutral creatures tend to be drawn from natural creatures like elves and lions and so on, but again we want to present those in an interesting way. So these are actually some of the new card designs that have gone in the game in the last week. As for the wizards themselves, so this is the key character that you're playing, and the wizards in Chaos Reborn are, again, they're not these weak, flimsy, robe-clad, grey-haired old men. They are dynamic fighting warriors, and there's different ways you can play a wizard depending on the type of body gear that you have, and here are typical 3 representations. So the one on the left is the arcane body type of wizard, which emphasizes more magic power. He's got a staff of attack, magical attack, this particular one here. The middle one is what's known as the heroic body gear type, more oriented towards direct combat with swords and other weapons. This is the female version. And the one on the right is known as the vigilant body type of wizard, more emphasis on defense and protection and a more cautious approach to combat. And you can equip these different body gears, and you can equip different staffs as well, and the different staffs have slightly different effects on what spells you get and what mega spells you get. So there's a lot more customization in how you approach the battles than in the original Chaos. And as to what these wizards are and the origin of them, Alan will explain a bit, because there's more interesting backstory to who they are exactly. But again, it's not your typical fantasy wizard. These are actually an elite in a particular type of society, which has been structured in a way completely around magic and how all the different characters within that world relate to magic. Another element of customization in the game, which you're interested in Chaos Reborn, is that you can configure your wizard staffs and body gear with talismans, which can have different subtle effects on how spells are cast and what your special abilities are. So we have this interesting customization aspect. Multiplayer side, we've also got multiplayer leagues, online leagues. These are the league levels you go through each season. You have to reach the Archmage level at the top, you get a world ranking. You've got 2 main modes: equipped, which is where you're using the staffs and different types of body gear. The classic Chaos mode is more like the original Chaos, where everybody has the same standard wizards and you just get a random selection of spells and you can just dive into a game without worrying about any configuration or setup. So these are our main 2 multiplayer modes. What we introduced on Monday is our first iteration of the Realm Quest, and this is perhaps the major addition to the whole game system, to the whole game world. And in the Realm Quests, these are actually single player adventures. You enter a realm and you explore it, you find enemy wizards, you have to defeat the Wizard King in the realm, and you can travel around by ship or wizard towers and teleporting, you have different encounters. These realms will be generated in 2 ways. One, we'll have a procedural generation system, and secondly, those players who advance to Wizard King level will have access to realm design tools and will be able to create their own realm adventures in which their Wizard King character or Wizard Queen character will be the big boss that players have to defeat. So this is the element of the game that we've just introduced and we're currently working on. But in future we have some interesting plans, because we have, within the Society of Wizards, there's a kind of a feudal structure, if you like, and this is something that players can aim for if they choose. It's not compulsory, but you can progress through these ranks here, and they give you some different roles within the game. Wizard Lord, you can act, your character, your wizard character, can act as a like an NPC character inside a realm which other players can encounter. If you do well at that, you can become a Wizard King or Queen. At that stage, you can actually start creating your own realms. You can then progress to becoming a demigod, and demigods are basically like the guild masters, and the guild system in Chaos Reborn is about competing, I guess, with other guilds in different levels, in multiplayer battles, in realm quests, um, and finally, you could, if you're extremely good, become a god or goddess within the game. And the players who reach this level will have some impact on the whole story and lore of the game, and even some of the rules of how we introduce new elements in the game. And they are the elite, and they effectively run a guild of guilds. So the demigods have to pledge themselves to a god, and the gods will have various favors and blessings that they can bestow on their followers. So your objective is to collect worshippers as a god, and at this stage you've reached immortality. So this is what we've got planned next in terms of development. In terms of the Chaos Reborn universe and the role of wizards within it, I've been working with Alan on the whole backstory. So Alan has been writing a novel called The Death of Gods, and this explains how the world of Chaos Reborn came to be, and I'm sure Alan will fill in some details as to what exactly this is about. This novel will be available when the game is released. And finally, just to remind you that for the current week, there's a discount on Steam for the game. You get 25% off. The discount ends at about 6 o'clock tomorrow. So if you're interested to pick up the game with a 25% discount, don't forget, you need to do it quickly. And this is set against the backdrop of one of our most noble creatures, the Sapphire Dragon. And that is it as an introduction. Thank you very much. I will hand you over to Alan to fill in a few bits if you want, and then we'll just go through some questions. Anything you want to ask about the game, I'll gladly fill in more details for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Julian. So, related to the backstory of this, so most of you probably know, if you are Elite Dangerous players, will perhaps know that some of the work that I did for the official fiction was to produce the guide material that the writers made use of to then produce their fiction. And that particular 3 months of my life where I broke my couch, sitting in the same place every day, trying to produce a guidebook for the Empire, a guidebook for the Alliance, a guidebook for the Federation, and so on and so forth, was a lot of work. Ably assisted by other people as well. I can't claim that I did all of it. Michael Brooks did a tremendous job in collating and curating what we put together. Dave Hughes did some excellent work with the old worlds elements of what we had, and collating the backstory of Galcop. And T. James did some stuff on the Thargoids. But I did do quite a large proportion. And what I also did is I then went over to Winchester University and said, hi, I've got an idea for a PhD. This is it. Making a backstory document that is elastic and allows you to then produce fiction, published fiction attached to it. So then along comes Julian doing his Kickstarter with Chaos Reborn, and I was looking for a second case study for the same documentation and the same idea. And essentially the plan is, and has been for the last year, is to replicate the background ideas and the structure and the method of looking at the point of departure, i.e. the point where the game begins, and looking at the point of origin where we need to fill in all of the details. So we talked to the backers. Some of them are gods, because they achieved that in the Kickstarter backing, and started to coordinate how this would all work together. One of the first things we talked about, if you remember, in our probably one of our first Skype conversations about this was, is this going to be set in the real world or not?
Yes.
And I believe your first response was, well, I think it probably shouldn't be. And I then said, well, hang on a second, because there's a reason why it should. So one of the things we decided ultimately when I persuaded Julian and twisted his arm and taken him behind the bike sheds and given him a Chinese burn on his wrist, was that we knew that backers, when they were looking to design characters, and when people were looking to design characters and design wizards and design other things, they were going to base them on stuff that they knew and stuff that they had experienced. So if I have a backer who decides to be a god and decides to call themselves Zeus or decides to call themselves Poseidon, then if this is a completely invented world, there's kind of a dichotomy there between the fact that there's a real and there's their invented idea. So I said, well, how about, because this means that what we can then do is do something quite original, how about we take a point in history and we depart from that point in history. So I looked and did an awful lot of research on the 14th century, and I have devised a timeline based on the 14th century going forwards, whereby certain key events during the 14th century happened because wizards were involved, happened because people wanted to destroy the world, happened because at the time there was an awful lot of rumor and happenstance about the idea of an apocalypse and the idea of the four horsemen riding all across the world, bringing with them death, pestilence, famine, and war. So these lovely four characters become the characters that eventually destroy the world over 100 years. And my remit then was to write up until the point as that starts. So essentially, what push came to shove was that to start thinking about these historical characters, to also thinking about the fact that we've got this massive world of classic fantasy creatures, which kind of, if you think of their origin stories, don't necessarily fit together that well, because an elf in Norse mythology, where it originally comes from, derived by Tolkien, moved across here, and a vampire, Bram Stoker, Stephanie Meyer. It was a joke. It was a joke. Okay, I wasn't really influenced by Stephanie Meyer. But the point being is that, trying to mesh those tropes that we already understand in society in modern day is actually quite a hard thing to do when you know that their origin comes from all sorts of different histories. So I started looking at very careful origin stories that would relate these and fit these together. And I also, and which was delight to the programming team when I went out and said that some of the stuff was based in Bulgaria as well, which they utterly loved, because of course obviously the programming team are in Bulgaria. So it's revolved around a story of a few characters based on historical characters or based on invented small scale characters who ultimately end up destroying the world through tragic circumstances. Yeah, it's a real.
It's a gut wrencher, basically.
Well, I was going to say it's a real uplifter, and I went out to see.
From this destruction comes creation.
Of course,
there's a new world that's created.
And there is a certainly when you pose the question, and when we get to the end of the story, when you pose the question, you hopefully as a reader you will sit and you will make a decision about whether the right thing was done or the wrong thing was done, and there will be a kind of a bit of a morality story to it, not a lecture but a morality story as part of what's there. But what was very interesting is obviously when I came out to see the team the other week, and somebody asked the question, what happens in the end?
Oh yes.
And so I gave them the ending, and of course you didn't even know.
No, I haven't read the end of the book yet.
No, well, it's not written.
He spoiled it.
Yeah, it's not written. So I gave Julian a big clangor of a spoiler, and he went, "Oh."
I was a little bit sad, yeah. But it's very interesting because the end of the book, as Alan has said, is a conflict between what is the right and wrong thing to do, and from when you first played it, I thought, oh no, that's a tragedy. But of course, when the world of chaos that came into being after this destruction of the world is where our game is set, and it does give you a good backstory as to what the tensions are in this world, between the alchemists and the wizards, and how does this rather strange universe actually hang together, because the wizards are now living on this, what is effectively a reconstituted planet built from the remains of planet Earth, and it's a horrible, twisted, scarred mutant planet which is only sustained by magic. And the alchemists and wizards have the power to travel and they travel to these fractured worlds, which are again remnants of the old world, which are in a sense orbiting around this central planet of Limbo. But everything is kind of fragile. Everything is a bit in flux, and the battle between law and chaos is something that ebbs and flows throughout these realms. And if one of these forces gains the upper hand, then some unfortunate consequences can result.
Yeah, and essentially the purpose of the fiction is to kind of oil that somewhat, to start with, to bring you there, and then to kind of help so that it plans out areas where the game doesn't necessarily go, so we can sort of play around with ideas of what the life of a wizard would be like. One of the pieces I've done, and we'll hopefully have this available at some point on the website, shouldn't be too long. One of the pieces I've done is a sort of flavour piece, which is essentially as a short story of about 4,000 words that just essentially sums up what it was like beforehand. And of course I took all this, going back to your origin stuff and your lovely cards, which that was great with all the drawings. I took all this from, similar to how I work with Frontier, I took all the original books and sat with the original books. And Julian wrote, when he wrote Lords of Chaos, which was a sort of half sequel in the 1990s, which I played to death, he wrote an introduction section that had about 7 paragraphs in it. And it was just one little page on a tiny, tiny instruction manual. But those 7 paragraphs had more in them. I spent about 2 days unpacking them because they were so densely packed with information that, I then expanded that out into this, this premise of how this world had broken. And it's kind of a bit of a cop-out, and George R.R. Martin gives us a little bit of a lesson in this. Fantasy as a binary is a kind of slightly dumb thing. And real people make real decisions, even if they're strange people like mutant wizards or paladins or vampires. They make decisions because we relate those decisions to our human experience. And those decisions are never always clear-cut. There is always a second side to the way in which those are made. And there are so many interesting stories that already, when you start looking at the game mechanics, you go, okay, you're a wizard, you're summoning creatures. How do the creatures feel about it? Where do they come from? Do they want to help you? Immediately you start thinking, oh, okay, yeah, okay, there's a story here somewhere. Okay, we can start to fill that in. We can start to work with that. And as I say, by the end of the book, hopefully it won't resolve, because the binary here is law and chaos. The binary is not good and evil.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to make the distinction.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a traditional fantasy trope of law and good and evil, and we want players to kind of pick their own path in the game as well, and justify their own actions and existence as a character within the game. And it will be very interesting to see how the players who are now gods, and maybe the players who will become gods, how they try to define their own rules, their own law, their own morals, and how this is reflected in the players' behaviour.
Should we go to questions?
Yeah, let's open it up.
John?
Let's open it up.
Okay, I get to run around a bit.
I thought, bless him. John's been sat there for a while. I thought, let's make him work.
Okay, I think you had your hand up first, Mr. Jarvis. Haven't you been speaking to Julian enough this weekend?
Yeah, but I haven't asked this question. So in terms of, sorry, it's me with one of my 2-part questions again. In terms of the social ranks, if you're sort of talking about the gods being an end game for some players, first part of the question is, are the Kickstarter backers who've backed to a level where they're already gods, have they kind of done themselves out of some game? And secondly, is your vision for that, those social ranks, is it like a sort of pyramid whereby there is a limited number of players that can get to God, or is it something that you can get to purely through merit and isn't based on a sort of ranking, if you like?
Well, to address the first question, so we had an interesting backer level system. So players could back up Wizard Lord, Wizard King, Demigod, and God. what this means in practice is that your player character starts at that level and can't be demoted from that level. You also get a nice, interesting little decorative aura for your character, which you can't get otherwise. But these levels are, they're not the objective of the game. They're a social role. They give you something that you can do which other players can't do, and you don't have to do those things, but you can do those things. And there's no, if you backed at a god level, you can do any of the things that are done at Wizard Lord, Wizard King, or Demigod level if you want. There's not a problem there. You can be a king in a realm, and it'd be quite interesting for a player to be playing a realm, finding his way through it, come across what he thought was just a king, but actually he finds that there's a god there who is defending this realm, and players can defeat the god. But of course, the gods are immortal, so they're not too worried about this. But the rewards will be correspondingly perhaps a little bit greater for doing that. So these roles are kind of like social roles to some extent, that you're taking part in a wider, sort of more like a massively online universe, rather than just battling other wizards online or just doing the single player stuff. So that's the emphasis of those roles, and the players who backed at those levels have that role in perpetuity. But as a player in the game, you can start as a lowly apprentice wizard, and you can work your way up to being a god. But the limitation there is, I'm afraid, it's a little bit a feudal pyramid. I mean, it's not purely on merit. You have to be in the top, 2% or so to progress to the next level. So the social mobility is not exactly very high. You need to be a little bit persistent, and you need to be you need to perform those roles well to progress. So if you're a Wizard King, you can create your own realms, and that might be good fun, but the realms that you create and the little stories that you put in there, players will give your realm a rating, a very simple rating, which is basically how good they thought it was, how much they enjoyed it. Not how difficult it was or how easy it was, but how much they enjoyed it. So if you get good ratings for what you're creating in terms of the realm, that is the factor that helps you progress to the next social level, to becoming a demigod. If you're a demigod, then you are responsible for organizing a guild, and that means you need to organize players into some kind of collective activity. So one of the things that you can do in the single player game, which is quite interesting, is you can invite another player who's part of your guild into a battle. So maybe you're in the final battle in the realm against, say, a Wizard King. The Wizard King's got like 2 Sapphire Dragon reinforcements and 3 Paladins. It's a really difficult fight. You can actually teleport in one of your guild members to help you in that battle, and you do basically a co-op versus AI battle. And this is what being in a guild, and obviously for this to be effective, the guild master, in this case the demigod, needs to organize players a little bit to help each other when they need it. So it's kind of a social role. And again, if you're good at that, if you're good as a demigod, there are guild rankings as well. So the guilds are ranked on different factors based on multiplayer battle performance, realm creation performance, realm ratings, single player quest ratings, a number of other factors that go into that. And the guild could be oriented towards single player quests, or it could be oriented to competitive multiplayer classic mode, or kind of just like different emphasis of where they want to organize their members. I don't know if that answers your question completely, but
hello, Stuart. I noticed in the original game you had a strong random element introduced by the throwing of the dice to discover how the cards moved. Did you retain that mechanic, or have you looked at, say, a more deterministic playing stage, so that the game is more like, say, a game of chess, where if you can think hard enough, you can work out the rote node and win through perfect play?
It is most unlike chess. It's, well, actually, to be honest, it has obviously a lot of the maneuvering positional aspects of chess. So in when you're playing Chaos Reborn, you can position things or your wizard in such a way that you have no risk of being killed, for example, or you can position it in such a way that you will gain advantage for your next turn. But it also has a kind of more of an element of poker that you have to assess risks and probabilities. So the combat it appears to be highly random. So I mean, you know, a giant rat does have a chance of killing a sapphire dragon. It's a small one, and
I was actually looking at whether there was some kind of dice-like roll that if you were unlucky, you lose the battle, or whether it was if you position things right, you were guaranteed to win.
it's a dice-like roll. It's based on a probability system, but there are ways that you can influence those probabilities.
Yeah, I would.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but it is ultimately down to a probability. Yeah,
I would say probably managed chance, isn't it? Actually, good players find ways to ensure that chance, and I'd count myself as not a good player, if anybody has played me. But good players find ways to ensure that chance is managed carefully so that they have the best opportunity to win.
It's interesting when you look at the good players at Chaos Reborn. Say there's one at the top of the league at the moment who's played in the Archmage level. He's played 17 games and he's won every single one. Now, I doubt that I could get anywhere near that particular level. So some of the not so good players say, oh, this is just a game of chance. I know I lose and win. I don't see where the skill is. But clearly the good players are having generally 70, 75, 80% success rates. There has to be something in it, otherwise it wouldn't be possible. And again, because the games are relatively short. I mean, you can play hundreds of games in a month. I mean, without spending a huge amount of time, it's not difficult. And often I will play a match against someone and we'll do maybe 3 or 4 replays and we'll have those games done within 40 minutes, 4 games. So over the course of time, the more games you play, the more skill is apparent and the more it shines through. And this is where, and you have to keep your wits, keep your nerve, because there is a strong temptation in the game to say, oh my goodness, I'm fed up with having 3 creatures not being summoned in a row. I'm just going to rush my wizard in and try and chop into bits with the magic sword. You can lose your composure a bit, and you can pay the consequences for that. So it's very heavy probability based, but the skill level is still pretty high.
Hi, how sophisticated is the AI? I mean, do you have any kind of your classic easy, medium and hard levels, or how does it work?
The AI at the moment is in very early stages of development, so it is not very clever. It is actually a phenomenally challenging task to make good AI for this game, because it's not like chess. It's not deterministic. You can't use brute force to compute outcomes, which makes it quite challenging. In the offline mode that you get at the moment, there is a little difficulty level setting that you can set with 4 different levels. It doesn't affect the AI quality. It simply affects the base stats of the wizard. So if you want to play the game and learn it, you can use the offline mode to play against one or more enemy wizards at a low. Set them at a low level and set you at the highest level, and it'll be a bit easier. Or if you want a challenge, you can set your wizard at the low level and set the other wizards at the high level. But they say the AI is in very early stages of development, and we have a lot of time allocated to developing that over the next few months. Our primary focus at the start was to focus on the multiplayer side, because this is how we balance the game. So we collect lots of stats from online games. We use that to fine-tune the mechanics, make sure all the spells are balanced, all the equipment's balanced. Now we're at the stage where we're developing a single player in the AI.
I suppose it's sort of a follow-on from the point about the social ranks, because it's based on players upvoting each other. Do you, being I suppose quite a small team, do you plan to have resources in place to combat sort of cheating or exploiting, or is that something that a team of that sort of size, is that something you can prepare for, want to prepare for? How do you manage that?
I don't know until we get to it. No, we have dealt with some issues of cheating already, some gold farming issues which we've had to deal with. So, for example, in ranked multiplayer, because you win gold from battles, and the gold you can use to buy equipment. And this is true of multiplayer battles, it's true of single player battles, and we had a little gold farming exploit which we had to nip in the bud. So yeah, these issues will come up for sure, and we have to deal with them as we come across them. I mean, cheating, I mean, it's not strictly speaking, it depends what you're doing. It may be possible to arrange it if you spend a lot of time and effort to try and get gold in the game, cheating wise, but it's a bit too much effort really, and it doesn't help you in becoming the best player really. For example, our equipment system, gold will allow you to buy lots of different types of equipment, but you can't guarantee that any particular combination is better than any other. You know, the equipment itself is relatively well balanced, so you won't get a huge amount of benefit there. And you know, there are always ways to manipulate, say, online ranking systems, but you just have to make sure that the effort involved in doing it is not really worth it. And this is going to be our approach, really.
Quite a straightforward question. When is the best time to play multiplayer mode? I spend more time waiting at the moment than I do actually fighting other opponents.
Yeah,
is there a particular time?
It depends. I mean, the best time is in the evenings, UK time. There's also one of our players organises a little tournament website where you've got a little chat channel there, and you can go there and try and organise matches. Ped209, his name is. So I encourage you to go to his little website to try and arrange matches and join in some of the tournaments that he's organising independently, which is pretty cool. It depends. I mean, the last week we've had a lot of players online, and there's been no trouble finding games, matches, I think, in the last week, because we got a lot of new players in. It really depends on the player base, really, what's going on. You can always play asynchronously, though, of course. I mean, I like to play a lot of my matches asynchronously, so this means you play a turn, and then whoever's, when they're online, they play their turn, and so on. If you've not tried that particular online mode, I kind of recommend it. It's quite good. It's a bit more, well, it's a bit less stressful, I should say, because you don't have this feeling that you're about to be kicked. So yeah, try that.
We can stop as soon as we're out of questions. I'm quite happy to, you know.
Okay, so 2 questions from me. How many players can be in the game maximum against each other?
4.
4.
4.
And you've mentioned getting gold. Are you planning to introduce any kind of pay to win, if you like?
No.
You can buy gold for real money.
No, there's no. The only way you can get gold is to do play battles. Actually, even if you're a loser, you get some gold. So multiplayer battles, you can win gold. If you progress through if you take part in the tournaments, each rank you progress will get you some gold. If you play the single player game, you can get gold as well. So there are different ways you can get it. And the better you are, the faster you will get gold, perhaps. But otherwise, there's no huge obstacle for players to earn gold in game.
Excellent, thank you.
I have a quick question. Which is most popular at the moment? Is it the classic mode or the equipped?
It's almost completely even, actually, believe it or not. The last statistics that we looked at. Actually, the equipped was slightly more popular, a little bit more popular. It wasn't what I expected, but that has been the case certainly in the last couple of months.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, here we go.
See, John's warming up. He's running faster now than he was earlier.
Yeah, hi. You mentioned asynchronous mode, and I wondered
Yeah.
if that's kind of like a play-by-mail. How many
Yeah.
games can you run like that simultaneously if you were in...
20. So you can run 20 asynchronous games simultaneously at the moment. It's a limit we're considering increasing because there's not such a huge server or database cost to it. But it's actually a fair amount to. Basically, it means that each day you can play a few turns, and maybe a couple of times a day. And I like the asynchronous mode; it's good. And we've got some players who only play that way, for example, and they enjoy the fact that it's for people who are very busy with children, and stressful jobs like me. I find it's very convenient because it means I can just log in, play my turns for a fixed amount of time, say 10 minutes, no pressure. It's cool.
Thank you.
Oh, look at him go.
Okay, then I'll ask a nerdy question. In Lords of Chaos, your summoned humanoid minions could ride mounts. Is there any
Yes.
plans to introduce that in Chaos Reborn?
We we have considered it. It's probably not going to happen, at least in the first iteration of the game, the first official release. We have got a few more spells to add to the game, not a huge amount. So, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
So it might be a stupid question. There are a lot of spells in the game. Is there any way to examine those spells outside of just playing to work out what they are and what their effects are?
Not as yet,
Can we have
but
one?
there will be. There are actually not a huge number of different spells. I think it's about 35, maybe. I think the best way to figure out what all the spells do is to just play with them a bit. So you can use the offline mode, and you can access full information panel for a spell that you've got in your hand, and then you can just try using it. So that's what I would recommend if you want to learn the nuances for the spells, and some of them have some interesting nuances and drawbacks. So yeah, it's.
And to be fair, when you're playing on a laptop, it's in a window. Usually, when I'm writing the book, what I'm sitting and doing, and if I have a scene that's got combat and has got a particular piece of magical casting going on, I've got a game up in a window. I'm looking at how the spells work. I'm looking at the different mechanics. I'm looking at the way in which it's cast, how it sort of pulls out. Go through that, and then on to the next one. So actually, it's fairly quick and easy to to pull that together if you want it.
Yeah, there is also, I'll just add, there is a little game guide built into the game which explains pretty much all the mechanics underlying everything. So that is also useful to have a quick look at.
I got a quick question before I pass this gentleman. When are we going to get Magic Fire?
Magic Fire will be in our next iteration of spell releases. It won't be happening for another couple of months though, so don't hold out for it yet. But it is definitely going to be there.
I believe Julian has just avoided the word soon. That was really good. That was really good. Yeah, I will continually counsel Julian to make sure he avoids the word soon.
You've mentioned building your own realm where you are a wizard lord. Is there any way to kind of introduce a backstory behind your realm? Some kind of, you can write something and then it's going to be like a description of your realm or anything like that?
Yeah, as when you're creating your realm, you will be able to write some encounters that can happen, which can be entirely up to the player as to how they want to structure it. If they want to have a much more story-oriented approach to the realm, they can do it. If they just want it to be focused more on just a strategic battle, they can do that as well. I mean, it's difficult to say. I mean, Alan's going to provide a structure for players to build their fantasy on, and we'll see how well that works in practice, because this is really quite an experimental approach to relating fiction to game content and player generated content, and I think it's going to be quite exciting to see how it works out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're planning to obviously to give the players as much of a possibility to make a to make a contribution to the fiction universe wherever we can. I got to play with the level designer a little bit. Well, I got to watch Julian play with the level designer and make some suggestions, and it struck me as it was a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, because it was, you could set up all the encounters of the journey, and you as the player can obviously decide where you go next and where you go next. But in the Realm editor, you could set up all the encounters of the journey, and you could also quite clearly define the narrative, projecting depth into the game world. So if you set your realm up, if you're the Wizard King and I come and adventure in your realm talks about, in all the narrative text which you can submit, it can talk about how you are trying to put together an evil plan to conquer this other realm that's next door, and what I am doing is trying to thwart you, and the ending scenario, which you can customize so that there is a finishing script. You could say, curses, I would have got away with this plan if it hadn't been for you pesky kids. You can put whatever you want into that. So you can essentially, you can derive that narrative, out of the elements that you want to put in. And we'll give you a little bit of a guide to sort of what's acceptable and what works in terms of the wider story. Obviously saying that the realm is Mars Bar world is probably not going to work for us.
Yeah, and one of the things we were thinking about putting, and this is a very experimental thing, so don't take this as absolute gospel. Then in multiplayer games, you've got a little chat window and chat channel, and what we want to do for the realm creation is that the AI-controlled wizards will use the chat channel to speak to you, and if you're creating a realm, you can with a few simple rules, pre-program some text that you can put in there, which will be given to the player at the moments you choose during a battle, to give the feeling that you're not just fighting a complete automaton. And of course, there'll be sort of a victory or defeat speech when you when you defeat these characters. So we'll see how well that works out as well.
In the original Chaos, exactly how much beer was involved when you came up with the gooey blob?
Sorry, how much what?
Beer.
Beer.
Were you very drunk?
Oh, I see.
or were you covered in chewing gum at the time? Was that part of the inspiration?
Well, I know. I think I was only about 17 years old at the time. I don't recollect being drunk at the time. I think walked home from
school with something
what I was
stuck in your
thinking about in the basic philosophy behind the gooey blob was nothing to do with some alcohol crazed insanity. But it's more about the idea that you can bring things into creation which have a really cool, powerful effect, but you didn't really have complete control over, and this thing that you brought in would create a structure to the arena, an obstacle that you have to go around or fight around or think about. And I think that was the thinking behind the gooey blob, which is probably my most successful game character creation ever.
It's weird. Everyone loves the gooey blob. It's just like,
I love it. I love it.
Okay, I think
We've
that
got one more question at the back here.
Sorry.
Are you gonna make any animals that can be in space and can try and stop you, and some of them can be on your side?
Like especially dragons.
Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons.
We've got dragons. Oh, space dragons.
Space dragons. No, I hadn't thought of that one. So these would be dragons that could actually fly from one realm to the other with some kind of...
that would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
Nice idea. That would be
Great
pretty
idea.
awesome, yeah.
I believe somebody's just got in the game credits then.
Yeah. Cool.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, folks. And obviously Julian's still here for a few hours, so he's been absolutely brilliant in coming over this weekend and spending time visiting all of us and getting to know everybody. I've loved having you here.
It's been a great experience. Thank you very much to everybody that has backed the game, by the way, both in Kickstarter and early access. I must say thank you. Without you, it would not be possible. Thanks to those of you who've actually had a chance to play the game over the weekend. It's been great. I look forward to any feedback you want to send me. just send an email to Snapshot Games and we will read everything. So thank you.
Thank you, folks, and we'll let you take.